I've seen it.
This is John King again. You've probably heard a little bit from Kodachromes, but one better teaching format, not as good as a necropsy, is to have something like a black box, or in this case, a gray suitcase, because the longer I'm in the business, the more things I collect. And these are interesting things that I think most of you will enjoy. And most of them are fatal, or at least have an interesting story associated with pathology. And a good thing about it is if you have something like this and start collecting it today, is that you can have it when you go to give a talk at some veterinary meeting, you know, a monthly meeting they have or something like that, and somebody forgot to bring the carousel projector, or they don't have a screen, or you don't have the right plug. This is what you should bring with your slides, as I did for this. Open the suitcase up and look at the beautiful stuff that you got in it. Well, we'll start with almost anything, I guess, and this is one of the newest things that you'll see. And the whole talk is what's new, kind of, and different in pathology. Well, this is one of the newest things. This is the single most common cause of pneumonia in horses in New York State. And this is a single cause. All it is just a shank line, or whatever the kids call it in the clinics, because I'm not a clinician. And this is when you ship a horse and you tie their heads up. They have a nasal drip all of the time. They're inhaling dust and all that. And they must snort now and then to get rid of the junk in their nose. You and I do it, at least as real men, we do it like this. But that's, you know, it's not proper, I guess. But anyhow, if you tie the horse's head up too tight in shipment, the postnasal drip will drip down their trachea. And 80% of all the horses I autopsied in Italy, for instance, they died with a little bit of inhalation pneumonia. Just a little bit in one lobe, but it's enough to make them sick and the fever go up and stuff like that. And this is the answer. And the Australians proved it about 1993 or 1994. They did the experiments over there in Australia to prove it. So I thought that was neat. There's one nice gadget. We can pull out lots of this stuff. Oh, gee, I forgot what that was already, but it does kill the dogs. And it's some kind of a chestnut, and that kills dogs when they eat too many of them. I forgot the name of it, but I don't remember everything.
Sometimes look up there, John. It's the camera that you're shooting your face.
Okay. The next thing you're looking at is this piece of bone, and you know it's a chicken bone. But this is called, this is a type of leukemia, of tumor in chicken bones. And we used to get this every Monday morning. So it was called, at school, Monday morning disease. Not like the thing in horses, but almost in the chickens. And you can see all the exostosis in this bone due to the erythroid leukemia disease affecting these leg bones. Why Monday morning disease, however? That's the interesting thing. And that is because over the weekend, the housewife, the farmer's wife or something like that, she cooked the chicken for Sunday and boiled it out for Monday morning stock solution for soup or something. And then they look at the bone and say, oh my goodness, what's that? They bring it in and we tell them what it is. I'm almost of the opinion most things that you see in veterinary medicine, as long as you cook them well, you can almost eat anything. This is just a small little bit of cloth. I've got it with a couple rubber bands to hold it together. But horses, when they're bored, or any other animals when they're bored, B-O-R-E-D, they will chew this stuff. And this was part of 32 pounds of foreign body, cloth foreign body, that the horse ate and blocked him and killed him dead in a donut. And this is why you don't want to leave towels laying around the pasture or on the fences to dry and things like that when you have horses. Admittedly, I've only seen maybe a few dozen cases in my life like this, but it's enough to kill a horse, and that's why I'm showing it to you. This is one of the more interesting lesions in the world, and that's a bone. And it's got this very fantastic shape. I have another one to show you the same way. It has a notch in both ends. It's about 6 inches long, and it's rather shiny. And if you got these marks, those are tooth marks in this bone. Well, that's from the Brazilian Pantanal, part of their country. And many of the cows die down there, and you'll find this in their rumen. Why that long? Why the notch on both ends? Because I have 4 of them. When I was down there, I collected them at 4 different schools. They gave them to me. And all of them die with what? Well, you all know Sir Arnold Tyler. I think he was a one-legged or one-armed. I've forgotten. The guy that Queen Victoria knighted down in South Africa. He found lots of cows that chewed bones all the time. And so he knew there was a degree of pica involved, but it turned out that it was due to botulism, that the cows were dying. And also in Brazil, that the Clostridium botulinum spores can live in there for years and years and years after the cow is dead. And it can still be a source of contamination, is what they say, for botulism. And that's why many of the cows died down in Brazil. I'm not as cocky about that diagnosis as they are, but I sure was impressed with these bones with notches being about 6 inches long. Well, this is not too much. It's just cut in half, of course, and that's a hairball. And many times when you see hairballs, you need to, well, why do calves have hairballs? Well, Dr. Fox, our eminent clinician, retired now, his comment would be, oh, they're bored, or they have lice, or they have pica, and the calves lick themselves and they get all this hair. And they do not need a specific nidus in the middle to make this calculus. That's going to be important when I show you some other things. This is just a hairball, and you can pick that out and you can put it on your dissecting scope, and you can see that it is just hair. It's kind of soft, but with time, the molasses or the grease in the feed or other waxes in the feed and stuff like that will harden this and make a nice hairball. That's kind of soft. But here's another couple hairballs, or foreign bodies. There are 2 of them here. And if you look at this one and you open it up, it has some laminations, very neat laminations, as you can see here. And there's plant and sticks and stuff in there. But this is most likely oat hulls, or at least plant hulls or plant fibers that are making this. It is not like hair. It's not like this one. And it'll have sticks and stuff like that trapped in there. Many times it is oat hulls in the old days, especially with horses. So that's a plant ball. The name for this would be a phytoconcretion or phytobezoa. That's the human term. And this would be a tricho, meaning hairball. But now let's look at this one. And there were several in this horse's gut, usually in the large colon, and it didn't go down through the small intestine to get there. It developed in the large colon. And it's the same kind of stuff and the same kind of laminations, for showing you as this one here. But the neat thing is, if you open it up, it has concentric laminations. It has concentric laminations. Now, what is that from? Probably the same stuff as that, plant fibers. But why is it there? There's the reason. If you go really close on that, you can see the screw in the middle of it. That's a screw, and that formed years ago inside of that. We'll talk about how long it takes to make these things in a little bit. Anyhow, this is another phytoconcretion, but it started with the screw in the middle, acting as a nidus. If you will, you could say this is a horse's colonic pearl. you know, like you get a piece of sand or dirt in the clam shell, and he'll make a pearl, in the clam, oyster, whatever makes pearls, oysters. And they'll make concretions around it and make you a little pearl. Well, I'm not sure we like to talk about fecal material making pearls, but you're stuck with it. Oh, this leg, I'm sorry, it's a little out of order. It might have been the other side. This is just to show you a normal chicken leg from a chicken leg that has all this exostosis from that bone that I showed you earlier. We're constant playing with maggots at school, and these are magnets from a cow's gut. When a cow inhales, when she ingests metal or anything like that, sometimes you can help them, and it does help to put a magnet down in their reticulum, and mostly in the reticulum, and it'll pick up the pieces of metal that go down there, and will hold it there and not allow the piece of metal to go forward through the wall of the room and diaphragm and into the heart. And all kinds of things will go in there. And many times you will see these straight gadgets like this, but they might not go through the room and wall and hurt the animal, so you don't worry about it too much. But this is a devil you want to worry about. And why you worry about this one is because it has the characteristic shape of probably 80 or 90% of the foreign bodies that get in the cow's rumen. And you can almost always bet they are about this long, and they got a crook in them somewhere. And that's just almost exactly what that's showing you. The catch is, and these are the ones that go forward and into the diaphragm. Why? How do you explain it? I think I explain it that in the reticulum, it's got all those little honeycomb, the other name for it, the honeycomb, and this sticks down, usually pointed on both ends, not just one end, and it allows one of these little rumen or reticular pockets, the honeycomb will push it forward when it's got a pointed end. But the big thing is, why are they curved? And why are they about that long, most of them, that go through and kill? Good reason for that. And that is, move the camera just a little bit. You know, when you're making silage or when you're cutting stuff, you often have a continuous tray that's moving on and bringing the grass or silage or corn or whatever to the blade. There's a big blade going around like this. And when this is going through like that, it goes all the way through on a continuous piece of wire, not the nail. Because this is a nail, it's just a little bit different. But it killed him because it had the bend. But as the wire goes through this long piece of wire, maybe 40 feet, I don't know, but it got into the hay erroneously. And as it goes through, the blade comes through and it'll bend it until it finally breaks. And then the next one will go through and break and do the same thing. That's why I think most of the hardware you guys see, that we see, ladies and gentlemen, have that shape to them. Not always, but most of the time. Oh, this is just another magnet. It's got the same kind of reaction. And the cows, they eat everything. And I've collected probably 1,000 of them over the years. And they got everything on them. Here's a magnet, and this one was made in Germany. Now here's a magnet you don't see very often. And that's a magnet that's almost eroded to nothing. They will erode, which is interesting. This is just a comic effect here. But this is in Australia for a year. And these are actually instruments that the Aboriginals used to do their original necropsies before they ate them. And it's just an old gadget. One of the most interesting stories, all that dark red you see or brown that you see is blood on that piece of metal. It's hard. Oops. I don't want to hit it too much because that's, I've had it for a few years now. That looks like a calculus. It is a calculus. It almost looks like a kidney calculus, the shape of a kidney. It could have been, but it isn't. This is a stomach calculus. And what animal? It's in a beaver. It's, I guess there were 7 or 8 beavers in the Philadelphia Zoo, and they sent a dead beaver up to us because they weren't doing autopsies at that time, or somebody wasn't, or I don't know. Anyhow, we got the beaver, and we opened him up, and this is in his stomach, and that's his bloody stomach on there. Now the catch is, why is that there? Why did he have this in his stomach? He didn't eat it like that. So you know it's a concretion, and it's a chemical one. It's made of calcium, and well, remember, beavers, castor, they must eat all the time in order to keep their teeth. They chew stones or whatever, sticks or something, in order to keep their teeth, what do you call it? To keep their teeth from growing and growing up into their jaw like a dozen rabbits, from overgrowth. And if they don't have something to chew, you know, their teeth are going to overgrow and kill them. But what do they chew? Well, if you have these woodchucks in a zoo, what are they going to chew? The cement or the rocks or the cement in between the cement blocks. And when they do that, they will recombine the little dust of that cement in this material, or maybe it's the plaster itself. Could be that too. And that will recombine in the stomach as a calculus. And they then photographed all the others after we told them, or x-rayed them, and after we told them that's what it was, and they all had them. They did surgery, I'm told, and saved all the rest of them. So that's why you do this kind of work. Okay, I'm not going to open it up, but you can see that. Those are pennies. And you can see one healthy penny right in the middle on the bottom. And the rest of these are all severely corroded pennies. Why did the animal die? What animal was it? What's a good reason for, you better say, well, what would eat pennies? Ratite birds do, or many other birds, I guess. They like silver or they like shiny stuff, and they'll peck it up. When they peck it up, they eat these pennies. Well, in the old days, most of the pennies were copper. You know, good copper, I guess. But now what are they made of? They're zinc and copper conglomerate, I guess. But anyhow, the zinc. So these animals are all dying from zinc poisoning from digesting these pennies. Now, you don't say it about other birds too much because other birds don't pick up shiny stuff. But these lot of ratites, you know, the ostriches and emus and things like that, they will. Well, this one's older than everybody in this room probably combined, showing you a little ring bone in a horse's leg, exostosis. It could have been from arthritis, or it just could have been from an old fracture of one of these bones. I don't know which, because I didn't x-ray that one. But that's an easy one to show you. And that's what everybody shows you usually from chronic things, from Paleolithic stuff that they can find. But this other stuff's a little bit different. That's why I show it to you. This is a joke. One of my pathology friends, I think, in Georgia gave it to me. It's sun-dried possum, and it was canned on the highway 74 between Wilmington and Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's just a joke. But there's something, another reason I'll show why I'm showing it to you. Isn't this fantastic? It's electric cord. Everybody knows about electric cords, and that's D88430. That just tells you it's our number system, but it's an electric cord. And this electric cord killed 6 or 7 cows, I beg your pardon, heifers, around a day after Christmas or something up in Geneva, New York, and I run up there to see why, because I actually knew why, because the others didn't have any lesions. So when cows don't have lesions, you need a good reason why they died. They didn't have any extra grain in the belly, so it wasn't lactic acid indigestion, which kills them without lesions. It could have been a poisoning, but there was no salivation and no odor of organic phosphates in the gut, which smells like garlic all the time. So you better think electricity. Did you have a windstorm up there? Yes. And when they have a windstorm, you better think about, did something get energized that shouldn't have? Well, they did have that, and I went up, but I was a little bit surprised to see this, because there's the lesion that killed him right there. And I cut it off their waterer that was stuck down in the big pot for water. And it electrified the water. The cows are standing over here, well grounded, and they get electrocuted very rapidly. There are no lesions in those cows. The good thing about it is that most of them die right near where they drank it. The interesting thing with this one, they walked 50 to 100 feet away from the waterer before they died. And that's a little bit odd. Incidentally, cows die quicker than horses ever thought of from electricity. And I don't know why cows are more susceptible. I don't know that, but I know it occurs. So that's a great lesion. Electrocution is pretty bad. Well, you wouldn't know what this one was, but there's no femur in anything that is really that thick. Well, you know, you wonder about it. Well, gee whiz, he's got an abscess in the leg. It happens to be a woodchuck. He's got an abscess in the leg and right in the medial, in the groin here. And, well, why does he have an abscess there? Well, if you keep looking, you see this big, thick bone, and it's all healed. But this is where they were bleeding the animal, and they got a big abscess and a periosteal reaction to it. So you got to look at it pretty hard. This animal here, what's wrong with him? Well, it's a woodchuck, but he had liver disease, because woodchucks do get hepatitis and all that, and they get a little icteric bone. So that's just look at everything, and it's no big problem. The os penis of animals is interesting only because they're a little bit different. This is a raccoon, and that's the os penis from a raccoon. And this is, well, if we put it down, gee, I forgot what animal it is. I think it's a cat, though. And the tibia. And it's brown bone. So if you can see that one as brown, then now you know, hey, he's got porphyria, you know, this congenital hemoglobin disease, because it's a brown bone versus the icteric bone versus, you know, jaundice versus a normalish bone, all cleared in the same way. I'll show you that one in a bit. This is a cute one. This is E82109, no big deal. But if you look at this piece of bone, there's a fracture here. Admittedly, it's a green stick fracture. I mean, it didn't break all the way. But if you look at it, well, what did it? Oh, I don't know, somebody, I don't know what did it in a bird. But it's got a fractured bone. But if you radiograph it, you'll see little pieces of lead there. So you know it was a bullet. It's just interesting. Oh, well, they're getting smaller, I guess. Just a little mummified lamb. Just a little mummified lamb. No great shakes. Okay, now if we look at this stuff, you can see the little seeds, and then you can see the purple seeds. Well, those seeds and purple seeds, that is treated wheat or treated grain. What do they treat it for? They treat it so that the rats don't eat all of it before they send it to a foreign country for seed to help, you know, NATO or whoever they're helping with this stuff. Well, that's very important, and we all should recognize how important that is. However, the black marketeers in some of those countries get all this seed, and if that was treated with strychnine, in this case it was strychnine, this is from a dog's belly, because a guy lived on a farm, he bought some treated wheat and those little wheat kernels, and it was treated with wheat, and the dogs died with the classic clap your hands and they go straight out. So that you make that diagnosis easy. But this could just as well have been treated with mercury, and they all die with renal disease. So you have to, that just takes a little bit of doing. You're going to put that in there for me, please. Then I'm showing you things, you're seeing some gadgets that on the other side. This is a corncob stub. What did that do to a dog? That's one of the most common foreign bodies that we see in the necropsy room that kills dogs. They eat it and it blocks their bowel. And it blocks their bowel by pressure necrosis of the intestine trying to pass it down, and the gut will get pressure necrosis over this. That's going to be important for another reason. I'll explain it when I get to it. Here's another plant ball that had a stick in it, and it's just plant fibers, usually oat hulls in horses. Oh, if you like hickory nuts, that'll kill. All these come out of dead animals, and it killed them. That's why I'm showing it to you. Here's a beautiful little piece of stuff, and you can see that it's nice and shiny, and it's heavy. Of course, that's lead. And again, you better worry about these birds or anything that pick up the shiny stuff. They'll pick up that flake of lead just like that, or that drop of lead. And where did that come from? Where did that piece of lead come from? Why is it here? Because you can bet that the zoo or the whatever it is, they just had a plumber in, and he was plumbing the facility, and big clumps of lead melted, went down there. They're shiny, and these birds go, and that's why they die with lead. Many times you can radiograph them and see them too, but that costs money. This is one that's completely almost unexplainable. It's not, but almost is. If you work at it, it smells like horse urine, horse pee, because that's what it is. And all that piece of stick, N88 471, this piece of stick was in the urinary bladder of a gelding or stallion or something. I don't know which one it was. Probably a stallion. But it was in the urinary bladder of a stallion. Now you go back 400 years, and any one of us men, or maybe women, but mostly men, get a urinary calculus. Now you know you've been trying to pee for 2 days and you can't pee. But there's an Indian from India, Pakistan, or someplace like that, and you know he's got a pretty good treatment for it. It's horrendous, but we're going back, 1500s. And they didn't have all these fancy surgeons that we have here. And now how are you going to get that calculus out? He takes an hot iron rod, and he goes alongside your rectum and goes right through into your bladder. And your urine leaks out. And you're saved. If you don't die from infection, or if you didn't hit the colon itself or something else. But there's your only hope, because there's no other way of saving you. Well, this horse, he backed up into a tree. Now, it could have been sodomy. It could have been some crazy person doing it too, because that's very common. But that big a stick, that horse had to run backwards 20 miles an hour and impale himself alongside the rectum, because he had a hole in the rectum with adhesions to the urinary bladder, and this was in the urinary bladder. And he had impaled himself on that 9 months before. And what do you think that mineral is? That is from the urinary salts. And that's exactly the same as the other calculi that I'll be showing you. Something like this. You get a foreign body in there, and the body walls it off. So you get this foreign body stick in the bladder, it broke off, and the body tries to wall it off, because mineral is not irritating to the body specifically. And once mineralized, the body says, well, we've taken care of our job. But that's a little tricky thing right there. I don't mark what's on the outside of these, so I don't worry about it too much. Now here's a calculus right here. This is a calculus from a horse's kidney. And you can see the horse's kidney. He's got his, the renal pelvis is down here and all that. And that's a nice hard gadget. And that's a nice hard thing. And if you look hard, you can see some little shiny mineral spicules. So it's a urinary calculus. Not too significant, but you see it. We'll talk about him. And you think that's pretty big. It might have hurt him. It might not. course, he couldn't pass something this big. But there's something very new about what causes these, and you might as well learn it in just a second. The next thing you're looking at is this. If you smell it, it smells like molasses, because it is. It's a molasses block. It's a stalk block. And these stalk blocks weigh, I think it's 800 pounds, 500 pounds. So it's a stalk block, 500 pounds. It consists of molasses and good stuff like that, mineral mix, and you name it. So that's pretty easy, right? Why should it kill them? That's as hard as, almost as hard as a rock too. The cows can't chew that. And therefore they can, I mean, they'll try, you know, they only got they only got lower teeth, not uppers. But they'll work at it and they'll get their minerals and stuff like that. But what happens is, the farmer bought these because they were very cheap and it was good stuff, and the farmer bought it and he put it outside because it says keep it dry. He put it outside, it almost melted, got very soft, and the cows could chew it. They like molasses, they like candy, just like you and I, and they proceeded to die pretty quickly with lactic acid indigestion and overeating disease from too much instantly available carbohydrate. Remember, cows are not simple stomachs. They can't toss it up like you and I can, or pigs or dogs. So that's stuck down there in their rumen, and those bacteria, flora, and fauna go ape over this stuff because it's instantly available carbohydrate, and these cows are going to die with overeating disease, acute. That's a fabulous little gadget. Now, we talked about, you know, animals getting, where's that corn cob? That corn cob in a dog. Dogs eat corn cobs, and if it can get past the pylorus, it can kill them. Well, this is one of the newest things I can show you today, and this is called, it's a new entity. I showed you the slides the other day, and that killed, this right here, killed a foal because it was full of fluid and a little more consistency than this, but that's his hair, and that's some hay and straw. It killed the foal. The foal swallowed it, it went down in the stomach, it didn't get digested, and then it started downstream. When it started down in the duodenum, it was kind of big and thick and wet and had more, you know, more substance to it. But the gut would go and try and pass it. But all that would do would shrink a little bit, and it wouldn't pass. And it would do it, try it again, do it, until finally this muscle in the gut just exhausted itself and underwent exhaustion, atrophy, and degeneration. And the foal died with a piece of gut about this long that was absolutely almost muscleless because of these foreign bodies. You see it best, these are called soft foreign bodies. You see it best in dogs that are eating Play-Doh, which, you know, is compressible, but if it's long, it won't move downstream, and it will exhaust the cow's gut or the cat's gut if he has Excelsior in it. And that's the actual one that killed this foal. So you're not going to see that one in a hurry. It's not too common in large animals, but it sure was in this, it killed this foal. A nice new entity you should be aware of. Gee, I'd pay anybody in the room $50 if you tell me what those are. Very common, very characteristic, and you should be able to tell me what they are. If you can't, don't feel embarrassed because nobody else does. I have a few more of them here. But if you've never seen them, it's just a cute little gimmick. If you've never autopsied an alpaca, llama, vicuna, or something like that, you won't see them. But these are the saccular concretions that you find in the forestomachs of these camelid-type animals. Is your hand up for time? Oh, excuse me. Well, that's all they are just they've got the little sacculations, primary sacculations, secondary sacculations, that get filled up with ingesta and secretions, because there's little glands in there, and they make these things. They're not too significant, but just find them because they're fun to do that. You've all heard about nutmegs. Well, there's a nutmeg with its case on. My wife got that in the Bahamas someplace. And here's the nutmeg cut in half. And you can see the arborized pattern that you see in the liver that has chronic passive congestion. And that's why you use the term nutmeg, because the liver, when you cut it, looks like that. And that's a whole nutmeg in there. Now, one fellow in Switzerland, he showed me these. They weren't these, but they could have been. And he said, "What are they?" Well, most of you don't know, but it's a common lesion in the pig. These develop in the pig mesentery, 2, 3, or 4, maybe a couple more or less. They're not common, they're of no significance, but I'm not teaching you significant stuff here. Interesting stuff that as a pathologist you should know, because we see these. And this is just metaplastic mesenteric bone of the pig's mesentery. And most of the time there is no cellular response to it. It is not inflammatory or infectious. Many of them are associated with, in the old days, they were associated with ileal hyperplasia of the small intestine, but we don't know what causes it. We just don't know what causes it. I've shown this in a Kodachrome yesterday. And that's a little piece of cloisonné jewelry. They take the gold and they make the outline and all that stuff, and then they make smaller outlines on the inside, and then they put in precious metal, and then they shine it all off, and you've got cloisonné jewelry. I guess it developed in France someplace, but that was to show you the real cloisonné jewelry that you see in goats with their cloisonné kidney. Here's another one of these brown bones, forget it. If they zoom in on these, they can see these little crystals, the little shiny crystals. Well, those are intestinal foreign bodies in the horse that usually form on hair and fine structures, because you can find these in long pieces. I'll show you some. But see how shiny they are? And also look at the crystal in nature, because that's all calculi are. I'll show them to you a little bit better. They're the precipitation or the crystallization of minerals that are in the diet that for some reason, usually probably electromotive or electromagnetically, the calcium compounds that are in solution in the feces will clamp on to a little nidus that's in the middle of these. It's like you guys making rock candy at Christmas time. You know, your mother is, she says, keeps you happy on a crummy winter day, and she gets all this hot sugar, melts it, puts a string in it, pulls it up, and they all crystallize. She does it again, they get a little bit bigger, bigger and bigger. And that's all a calculus is, for the most part. Rock candy in the raw. More hickory nuts and stuff like that. Well, that's you can sell that in China probably, because that's a calculus from the gallbladder. It's not a good one, though. Does anybody know what that is? That is a classic, and you should all know it. It's a very common thing, and I wouldn't excuse you if you didn't know it. There are 2 of those in each cow's hearts. What are they? Sure, the os cordis of the cow's heart. And you have 2 of them, and they're both triangular shaped, and God made them like that, and we agree, yeah, God, you made them, that's what they are. I'm not going to fight him. I'm getting too close to that time when I might have to, personally. The next thing is something not many people have seen. That's this piece of thing here. It looks like coral. It has nothing to do with the skull per se bone. It's in the skin of the bulls that fight each other. And if they stand there all day, butting their heads against posts or other thing, they get metaplastic bone. And this is just in the skin. It is not in the skull. It's not an exostosis. You know, I mean, if I whack your bone, damage your bone, I can get exostosis, but not in this case. This is just from whacking it in the skin, and you're getting metaplastic bone in the skin, because you can peel that off with the skin as you skin the skull and take his brain out. That's a neat lesion. And this is, you've already had that today. Some of these from Switzerland, because one of the guys brought it out and said, do you know what this is? Of course I did. That's baloney, but of course I did, because I'd seen it before. And that's the mesenteric metaplastic bone of pigs. It's not a big deal, but just know it's there. Okay. Sorry to take a little bit of time to put them away, otherwise, gee, I'd never get anything out next time. I got a friend, her name is Lois Roth, and one of these was in a dog belly, and that's a dreidel. You know, it's a Jewish game, and being Jewish, she made one as a kid, and she gave me that. And but this one was in the dog, and it killed the dog, and this is the normal dreidel. It's dreidel, dreidel, dreidel. I made it out of clay, and when it's dry and ready, it's dreidel I will play. So I learned my Jewish culture from her, and I think it's fabulous. Anyhow, that's a dreidel, and it killed her, and that's the one she made as a kid. This is not worth showing you. It's not that good. There's a mini ball from the Civil War, real. That was the, you know, euthanasia method of common euthanasia in wars in general, I guess. But that one's the Civil War. Isn't that awful? Yeah. I didn't say this was all going to be. Anybody know what that is? As you're looking at that, that is a bone, multiple bones, and that's from the os ocularis. I forgot the name, I had to look. Os ocularis, and that is what the birds of prey, the eagles and the hawks and maybe owls, I don't remember, but I took it out of a hawk, and that's what they control their lens with. So when they're way up there, they can telescope their lens, open it up, I guess, or, you know, it's a concave disc. They can do that, and they can see that little mouse chewing on a blade of grass, you know, 5,000 feet below. And this is the thing that controls it, because this is the thing with the eyeball on the inside. So that's a neat little gadget. And that's how they control their eyes, so they can go down from way up in the sky. Oh, you guys all know about bull rings and stuff. That's for farmers or people who don't know. Okay, we're almost done with half of it. Do we know the time? It's 1:30. You're gonna tell me when to quit? Is that correct? Pardon?
Yeah, 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay. You know, if you saw that on the side of the road, if you saw it on your backyard, of course you'd think it was dog do. Well, I'm not going to put dog do in my mouth. I do crazy things, but I have a limit. But that is rope. And if you played with that enough, that is rope from the gut of the horse. And it's almost mineralized. Well, a lot of it is mineral. But the horse ate the rope. The rope acted as a nucleus or kernel or nidus, whatever thing you want, and it started to mineralize because it shouldn't be in there. And it started to mineralize. And that's just a foreign body under a string, you know, baling twine. It's baling twine that the horse got into his bowel. And you can get twine in anything. Now, this is nothing, correct? but it wouldn't be if it was a bunch this big, and that's what it was, a bunch this big, and there's other pieces around it have broken off. But there's a string in there, and the string in there allowed the grass and everything else and other hair to make a big ball like this, and it kept wrapping it up. With time, it probably would have mineralized, but it hadn't yet. So that's another type of foreign body. Don't forget, we talked about corn cob killed a dog, bigger dog this time. That's rubber ball. I know all of you as children, you played with a Smurf ball, Snurf ball. What's that? The little rubber, foam rubber balls. Somebody knew the name. Anyhow, this was in a lake trout on Cougar Lake in his mouth. And the fish swam around like this because this is full of air and it held his mouth up. But every time he shut his mouth to try to spit it out, as soon as his mouth opened, that opened and it couldn't come out of his mouth. And he couldn't swallow it, and it finally, somebody took the fish out and saw that hanging in his mouth. And they brought the fish to me. They thought it was a tumor. It was just a Snurf ball. That was the name of it. Went whale watching one time with my wife. So what is that? Go whale watching and find that. What is it? It's a parasite. Actually, it's a colony of parasites called a barnacle on a whale, because the whales would come up right near the boat, and you could get the barnacles in Bahia, California, someplace. So that's a barnacle, but it's another parasite that you should know. This is about the heaviest thing here per unit volume. So that means it's got the heaviest specific gravity. And as you look at it, it's made up of little stones and stuff, and you can read it on there just as well as I can. It's a parotid duct calculus from the salivary gland in the horse, 1940, Dr. Hopper. But that's, they used to have a lot of calculi in horses. They don't have any more. I don't know why, or at least I don't see them. But that's a very heavy specific gravity calculus in the guttural, in the salivary gland duct, the parotid duct. It's one of the salivary glands. And this is just curiosity. If you never knew what a sawfish's saw was, the big sawfish? Well, that's the sawfish's saw cut in half. It's just bone. Here's a walnut or black walnut, and that kills dogs if they swallow them. Don't let them swallow them. Don't play with dogs with little rubber balls. It'll kill them when it goes down in their gut. Here's a nice stone. If you look at that stone, that's a real stone. Would you put that together for me, please? That's a real stone. No big deal. I'll come back to it 1 minute. What do you think this is? These are mink feet. Oh, see the mink feet? These are the mink feet. Turn them over and look at their paws. And if you look at them, they're hard. Well, they're hard because they're pretty well fixed now, but look how thick it is. Well, this is distemper in mink, and this is normal in mink. That's called hard pad disease. He did it. Isn't that wonderful? Now, there's a stone, and there's a stone. And if you look at them real good, they're both stones together. The senior veterinary student, who's a very knowledgeable clinician today, she said, why the heck did that horse swallow that stone? And she dropped it on the floor. When she dropped it on the floor, she didn't drop a stone. Look at the beautiful organization and the crystallization of this intestinal calculus based on that pebble. There's a pebble right in the middle of it. And so the pebble had a certain electromagnetic potential, and then all the minerals in the feces, they were in solution, but then they crystallized out on that stone. Isn't that fabulous? Because it looks like a stone, should be a stone. This is a stone. Boy, wouldn't I be disappointed today if I broke that in half and found a pebble in the middle of that too. Beautiful. I don't want to lose these too much. Here's a fish's tongue, nice and hard, and you can actually use it for fingernail file. People did, that's why I have it. Now here's another stone, calculus. Blood on it, because that's from a rabbit. And the catch is, the rabbit probably wasn't bigger than that. And that's a very, the specific gravity is almost the same as this from the parotid. Usually calculi are not that dense. But in these two cases, the urinary bladder calculus, in the bladder and the parotid gland calculus. Another nutmeg. Oh, remember I told you I'd show you those little pieces of very shiny mineral? Well, look at the little crystalline form that you see close here. It reminds me of the rose calculi that you buy in the mountains of West Virginia or something as souvenirs. See how nice and shiny they are in the crystalline nature. And that's on pieces of string in his gut. And they can get big masses of the stuff. This is a sago palm nut. And you get a whole bunch of those in you and you're a dog, and you're going to be turned as yellow as these little tags. And it'll kill you dead in a donut. And you have to have a good... Dr. Bergelt of Florida just sent me some, and he asked me what it was or something like that. He didn't know about the sago palm, which was nice, or I don't think he did. Don't forget peach pits. Boy, they'll kill you if you're a dog. If your gut isn't big enough. If your gut is big enough, if your gut isn't big enough, then you got a problem. Oh, I think we can show you this. Let me show you these two. See those two little copper pellets? But they're two different sizes. But one of them killed that darn goat that it was in. And these are copper-coated calculi. Copper-coated calculi. I'll show you a whole bottle of them from another goat or sheep or ram. And to me, you're going to get calcium, magnesium, phosphate, for most of the material. But they get a copper coat at the end. This is a Stallion Ring. A lot of people have never seen the darn things. And we got it in the postmortem room. And we said, well, who in the heck put that on that stallion? Some kid playing a trick. No, that's a stallion ring to keep them from getting excited and breeding the mares. Because if that's on their penis, on the prepuce, they can't force any blood in and service any of the mares. But it's just something nobody's ever seen. Big deal. It gets a giggle out of half of us. The other thing here, this is this gadget here. If you feed that to all of the foxes in Europe, they're going to get vaccinated with rabies. And that's what they used to vaccinate, stop some outbreaks of rabies in Switzerland and places like that. The fellow who invented them did a good job. He died in a helicopter crash doing it. So that's kind of a tribute to him. He died for his work. That was pretty nice. Everything you know, everything you see in Australia, almost, because we were down there a year, everything you see, everything that wiggles or moves, it's going to envenomate you, it's going to poison you, it's going to bite you, it's going to kill you, it's going to irritate, it's going to do something to you, including these little cone shells. These little devils will have a little foot process that comes out, and in the middle of it they have a little injector needle, so to speak, and they can put poison into your foot or into your back if you lay on them and stuff like that. It won't hurt you and I as a 150-pound, 250-pound man, but it can hurt little kids. And that's a cone shell, and it can be kind of toxic. This is horrendous stuff. It's beautifully yellow. This is nitrofurazone. The Germans did the research on it to show that nitrofurazone, fed for the first week of life and letting the calf live for 8 to 10 weeks, they will die with massive exsanguinating hemorrhages all over the body, and they sure do. And that's just the nitrofurazone to show it to you. hexachlorophene. I don't know how many children died with this in Albany, New York, shortly after the war. Because this is surgical hexachlorophene soap, what's the year? 1944 is the year. They used to use hexachlorophene, you know, for surgical rubs and stuff like that. They also used it on babies. But if the baby's too small, they can absorb it from the skin, and it makes the greatest, well, the worst that you can imagine, vacuolization scattered throughout the brain, spongiosis. It makes fabulous lesions. Cats the same way. And if you give it to cats, and people do, and the cats have opportunity to lick, when you give it to them, you wash them. They say, well, he needs a bath, he get fleas. And they use this stuff. We'll continue now on this great black box or gray suitcase, and I'm showing you a nice big thick bone. Most everybody, at least a veterinary pathologist, should know that's a pig's bone. It's a young pig's bone because the epiphysis is still not closed. But what's wrong with it? Well, it fractured and it's healed itself. And it's just showing you a heel fracture. Nothing special, except nobody knew he had a broken leg. So Mother Nature is pretty good to all these animals. The next specimen is another hard calculus. And you hit them, they're nice, it's a hard calculus. And if you look at that thing, you know darn well it's a calculus made in the gut, again in a horse, could be other species, but mostly horses. Concentric laminations, including some plant material, but mostly it's dissolved mineral in the feces. And if you want to make it, I hope it's sterile, I doubt if it is, but now you can see in the middle of it, you can see a square piece of metal. And that square piece of metal is a horseshoe nail. And that served as the nidus for all the mineralization to form on that. So that really is a great specimen. Now, how do I know there's a piece of mineral in there? Well, several of them were broken open when I first collected them, and they had something in them. So then I would put them, I bought a diamond saw blade, and I started cutting them in half. But it's just as easy to radiograph them, and you can see the metal in there. Here's another one. And you can't see the nice concentric laminations unless you wet it. And then when you wet it, you can see all those beautiful concentric laminations. And in the middle of it, it's got something. I don't know what that something is in this case. It could be a little pebble, but I can't be sure. Because pebbles do have magnetism, and it could be that. Now look at this one. This is 1,119 grams, 4.7 by 4 by 4 centimeters, N94. That's 1994, 495. That's in a horse. If you look real hard, right on the surface, you can see the little crystals of mineral that have made up this mass. And while it's still being a little bit soft, the crystals, you can make them smooth like these areas here. And if you turn the thing over, darned if he doesn't have a pebble in the middle, and look at all those crystalline structures that are making the laminations. And of course, in places, he gets a little bit of grass and stuff caught in among the crystals. Foreign bodies. Now, we've seen these in 9-month-old horses. That means it takes at least 9 months to get them. Now they start getting big with time. And again, you can see the concentric laminations. That's almost a thing you could hang on Cleopatra's neck. And, you know, you probably, well, it's $100,000 there. I mean, look at how beautiful, and it's natural. Well, pathological, but natural. So that's really a neat specimen, too. And that probably is number 196, or, well, that's 29, but there's lots of those around. Now, here's another one. It's hard stone, but if you look at that one, I don't have to spit on that. I put some epoxy on it once, and You can see the laminations. But that's got a white pebble in there, acting as a nidus for which all these others would form. So make sure you look in all these things. Here's another smaller one, but he's got a piece of wire in there. So they're all a little different, but just understand how they form. And they form by the dissolved minerals in the feces that are doing that. I heard somebody here in the group know what, talk about that. Anybody know what that is? Don't read the name. Anybody know what that means? If you knock these in the ground, they all crack. So you have to be a little careful. Anybody know what that is? Well, I was down in Brazil, had nothing to do except do autopsies and teach with Kodachromes, like I do anywhere, I guess. And they brought this monkey into me. It's a Howler Monkey. And that's his resonant chamber in his throat so they can howl properly, I guess. And you also have them in elk and caribou and moose and stuff like that so they can howl whatever they do. And the guy had edema in different places, and this is normal, but it's very tender. You can see it's not very, it's a very fragile bone. It's in his throat. And he had been hung upside down, and I made the diagnosis, and nobody believed it. And nobody wanted to believe it, I guess, because here's just a Howler Monkey sent in. But the guy came in, they all speak Portuguese, and he came in and he found him in a crotch of a tree upside down. He couldn't get back up. So it was like bloat, except the opposite, bloat lines and stuff like that. So that's a Howler Monkey resident chamber. Now, this is fantastic. If you get your picture on that, it says ivory billic, transparent gloss, and the next line says safe for food containers, right? Safe for food containers. But underneath it has a sign that says caution, harmful if swallowed. So what do they mean? Is it safe or ain't it safe? Good English. I don't think I can open it. Yes, I can. And if you look at it, it's still there. This gloss is still there. And you heat it up and it'll be nice gloss. You know, shiny pottery stuff, whatever you call it. Ceramic stuff. Well, these calves all have massive edema of the subperiosteum on bones because it's lead poisoning. And nobody knew why. We don't have any source of lead. There's no paint, no nothing. So my wife and I, when we were in Australia, we drove to the farm using their company car because they would kind of do it because I'd write up all the cases that I went to visit. And we looked all around the place and I took pictures and the people were kind of poor. And I said, well, do you have any paint or any batteries? No, we don't have any of that. Okay. But I walked the pasture and there was a house there and a little dump nearby. Nobody was living in the house, and darned if this wasn't opened, sticking out of the dump. And that's what the calves licked to get lead poisoning. Believe it, it's a great lesion when you see it. I had that other can of stuff here, and this is 9 Lives tuna. 9 Lives tuna. Well, 9 Lives tuna is good tuna fish. But don't eat too, I mean, if you're a cat, just don't eat it as a steady diet, because if you eat it as a steady diet, there's not enough ash in here. Not enough ash means not enough calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and these animals are going to die as a result of mineral deficiency. Very interesting way to die. It's just like, if you all don't know it in the audience or wherever, if you don't know it, meat has roughly a 30-to-1 ratio of phosphorus over calcium. And you're supposed to have a 2 calcium to 1 of phosphorus in your natural diet. So if you don't have enough mineral in there, your bones are going to get soft. And if you're a cat only eating heart, beef heart, you're going to die in 3 to 4 weeks. In 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to stand up. In 3 weeks, you're going to be really prostrate, and then you're going to be dead. So don't eat just meat. And some people do. When you get older, you get funny diets. Don't do that. It's got a little ball in there, but The dog ate it, and it went downstream, and it killed him. That was a big dog, because a little dog couldn't get it too far, but it killed him. D88, 340. Don't eat stockings either, because this is a veterinarian stocking who lives in Green, New York. What killed the dog? It might have killed him without it, but the snot killed him. Why did the knot kill him? Because it stopped at the pylorus, and this went downstream. And the gut, it's elastic stocking, and the gut worked on it, but this kept pulling it up, so it telescoped his intestine. And as a telescope, the gut's trying to move it, and it'll wear a hole in the gut wall, and he will die with peritonitis because of an intestinal linear foreign body. And where will that tear be in the intestine? In what part of the wall? On the mesenteric attachment side. Why? Because that's a lesser curvature. And this will work on the lesser curvature. It won't work on the greater curvature. So you have to have a good index of suspicion. That's a fantastic lesion. Yeah. Here's another one of those bones. I keep it special. That's another one of those bones from Brazil. And why is it, this is only about 4.5 inches long, but why does it have that? And the cows that eat it will die from botulism, as I mentioned, because the clostridial spores are inside. But that came out of the cow, that shiny. I didn't shine it up. And in that beautiful specimen, I mean, you know, if I could put it through somebody's nose or something like that, that'd be really worth a lot of money. Look at this one. This says Prima paste for mares and foals. There are 9 doses in there because the first dose already killed 1 foal. Why? Some people say it's because of the iron fumarate in here. I don't believe that yet. I killed a foal with it, I admit, but I don't believe it's the iron fumarate that did it. I think it's the mycotoxins that developed in this stuff. The mycotoxins, it might be pretty dry now because there's still, something's still there. And I think it's a mycotoxin in it. But it doesn't matter, it's Prima paste, and it killed probably tens of thousands of foals before they figured it was going to be dangerous. That's bad news. Oh. Another little calculus, but again, he's got a black stone in it this time. Another little calculus. Shucks. Forget that one. You all know about ergot. Well, this is ergot. Claviceps Purpurea. And those are and that's what they sell for USP, United States Pharmacopoeia. Ergot, claviceps. And those are the sclerotia, or sclerotina, sclerotia of ergot. And that's the pure stuff, right? The whole thing. And, you know, this is ergot poisoning. It causes vasoconstriction, gangrene of your feet and of your tail and your ears, if you're cattle or other species too. Ergot. If you've already dilated cervix and you're going to have a baby, it'll push the baby out quick. But you don't want to eat that stuff if your cervix isn't open, because the baby's coming out sideways or anyways through the uterus. That's if you're a dog or cow. I can't talk about humans, but it happens like same thing in humans. Now, we have a nice disease of horses called guttural pouch mycosis. And every time you see a guttural pouch mycosis, it's almost always dorsal. It's always dorsal, and it's always associated with the hyoid articulation. And here's the exostosis with a hyoid articulation right here. Right here is articulation. And here's exostosis because of infection. And he will die with mold. I say it's due to the articulation arthritis because many the guttural pouches are open to the outside anyhow, through the eustachian tube, and you have mold up there, and it's of no significance. However, if it's near a blood vessel or near this arch, and where he has inflammation, it'll start growing. Otherwise, it won't grow, likely, and then it'll go through a blood vessel and bleed you out if you're a horse. That's why you die with guttural pouch mycoses. Any guys who complain about getting stuck with porcupine quills don't want to go to Australia and get a real porcupine quill stuck up your ear someplace. Here's another stick. That was in the chest of a dog, a nice great big blue tick hound or some hound type. And he probably ran into a stick on the side of the bottom of a tree, shoved it right through his thoracic inlet, but it didn't kill him until it made a great big infection in the chest. And then he died. I think I love these little gadgets. If you look at those little gadgets, the rest of the gadget would be this big. And those are pygmy arrows. The only reason I collect them, because when I was in South Africa, the fellow at the lab gave them to me. And all that junk you see on the outside, those are grubs. They collect these grubs from the ground, and they know it's very effective, and they cook them up a little bit and then dip these arrows in, dip these arrows. And then they wait for an impala or some animal to come by, and they pop them with this little arrow. But those are all cardiac glycosides. And those animals, if he leaves them alone, that other animal, and doesn't chase them, they'll go over a little hill. They can't see him, he can't see them, and he, the little native African, he'll wait, and that cardiac glycoside will kill that animal, and he's got food. But these are the actual arrowheads that are doing it. They're beautiful little gadgets. Now, I've shown you this stuff ad infinitum, or pictures. This is banamine or butazolidine, and it's a non-inflammatory, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Banamine butazolidine. And that will, in adult horses, cause right dorsal colitis. Gunson, Diane Gunson, the name, yeah. She published it from Pennsylvania, but we'd already had quite a few cases and said that's what it was. But she published it and proved it, and that's pretty neat. Right dorsal colitis. In the young foal, this will eat up their non-glandular part of the stomach and the duodenum, and they will die beautifully with peritonitis. Now, I've shown gross specimens to that to veterinarians, and the veterinarians say, well, gee, I use that by the bucketfuls. I never see this. He's absolutely lucky that he hasn't, in my humble opinion. Or his horses were not dehydrated, because I believe there's a degree of dehydration necessary, and Gunson published it, to make this a very effective damager of horses and foals. Well, you all know what this is, even without taking it out of the box. It's pink and blue, and that's a ninja turtle. And the dog ate it, and they eat plastic. Didn't kill him, though. Oh, here's the other. Well, you already had those before. Let's see how functioning your neurons are. For the older fellas, you're going to forget, because it's only good for long-term memory. What are those? That's the os cordis, ossa cordis, the double ones in the cow's heart. And that's from one cow. To show you these, well, it's common in the woodchucks, lots of tooth problems in woodchucks, but I can't see those too good in this woodchuck. But this side's swollen, that one isn't. Don't worry about those too well. Then there was a young lady who was going to Africa, and I wanted another thing from Africa, which I thought was quite unique. But she didn't find that, but she found that. Does anybody know what that is? That's just a joke. If you don't know what it is, don't feel bad. But it's neat to get some of this stuff. Anybody have a clue? Well, I don't want you to answer, I guess, in public here, but that's the wart off a warthog. And I just knew you were all dying to see a wart off of a warthog. Okay. Oh, here's the ergot, Claviceps Purpurea. That's the real ergot. And that'll make all of you abort tonight if you happen to be pregnant. And it's just a type of fungus that grows on grain, wheat, and other stuff. Claviceps Purpurea. I know the Army just recently had some of this in a one of your caisson horses. Did I say that word right? It marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, pulling somebody in honor, and the horse dropped dead because the trainer or whoever takes care of the horses, he let him nibble on the taxus, usually Taxus cuspidata, Japanese yew, the evergreens that every building at Cornell is loaded with taxus. The red-berried ones are the females and the ones without berries are males. The catch on this is we had a nice outbreak in New York. We had 2 horses that some nice-looking sister of one of the vet students called her brother up at vet school and said, "Hey, my 2 horses died last night." Oh, she was upset. And we didn't know why, so she brought them up. We posted them both, and they have taxus in their stomach. The catch on that is the horses it was in a place where you keep horses. What do you call that? Where you keep horses? In barns. Stalls. There are stalls, 25 stalls on this side, 25 on that side, and she had one here and one here, separate by 15 to 20 horses, and only her horses were dead. How would you count for that? Well, we thought maybe a jealous boyfriend or something, I'm going to fix you, gal. And he killed her 2 horses, because why not the others? But it turns out that she had exercised them in a snowstorm, and the evergreen trees were there, and they nibbled on them. And they had been there for, all fall, all winter or something. Why did these 2 horses eat them and not the others? I don't know. Anyhow, Taxus cuspidata. And you can feed one horse a mouthful from that one bush, and it'll kill him deader than quick. In just a few minutes, actually, 40 to 60 minutes. But you can feed 5 other horses on the whole tree, and it won't hurt them. And there's no explanation for this variation in effect. I don't know the answer. You don't either. Ping pong balls will kill you. These are the pancreatic calculi in bulls or other animals. Pancreatic calculi, I'll show you some better ones. But they're in bulls very commonly. They're nice and round, and they go all the way up and down the whole duct. Why they don't conglomerate to make one big one, I don't know. That one's not as good as I like. Look at these. Now, I'm not going to take him out. I don't want him to work all afternoon. But you look at these little copper-coated calculi, again, in another goat. They look like BBs because they're copper, but they're from every size from pinpoint to BB size. So these are copper-coated calculi, common in the goat. Not many people see them, but they're beautiful little gadgets, but they're fatal as heck. These are stones, and this is alfalfa. This is stones. They're just stones. The deer in the wintertime, when they eat sticks and stones and evergreens, they develop a certain lining to their rumen. Big villi take care of the greases and waxes from the evergreens. And no problem. They have gone from summer feed to winter feed. And some of the winter feed can probably chew on stones. They're so hungry. I don't know. But many of them live. But many do-gooders, many people who feel sorry for the wildlife, including me, You know, they toss down bales of hay. Well, you toss down a bale of hay to 20 starving deer. Their rumen is so ready for food that they'll die with indigestion. What I'm really trying to say, I don't know why they all die, or they don't, but they do not like the flora and the fauna in the rumen of in the rumen of these deer. They don't like changes in feed. They like them, but they can't handle them, and it'll go ahead and kill them. So this is why you kill cows so easily when you give her a few extra dippers of grain after she just calved, and you get, you know, overeating disease associated with recent parturition. Don't do that. They're used to this feed. Don't go into this feed. Now, you haven't eaten anything for 3 weeks because you're a prisoner of war and you're hungry as heck. If I feed you, you know, you like steak and lobster, I give it to you, you'll chuck it all up. But these cows and deer can't. So don't change their food indiscriminately. Just like this. You usually feed the cows 20 pounds of whole corn a day, or 10 pounds, or, you know, whatever you feed them. To a mess of cows, 500 pounds of whole corn. That's okay. But you run out of whole corn. And you say, well, I'll give them 500 pounds or 10 pounds, whatever they've been getting, of ground corn. Don't you dare do that, because you give them ground corn, they're going to get instantly available carbohydrate for all those flora and fauna, and those cows will get overeating disease. That's a no-no. That's the same to talk about wheat. You just don't change the feed overnight. Now, corn. Is corn corn? Sure, corn is corn. We all know what corn is. Well, here's moldy corn, and actually you can see mold in there. So that's moldy corn. They're getting mycotoxins. Well, that's okay. And then you go to the corn like this and you say, no mycotoxins. That's absolutely wrong, because many times this corn, even though it doesn't look moldy, will have a higher percentage of mycotoxins in it than the moldy looking corn, because it depends on the type of mold and all that jazz. You can't be cocky about it. See these little white gadgets in here, and they're kind of rounded and a concave disc with a depressed center in the middle. Well, those are gastroliths in a crayfish, and they're normal. And somebody says they're necessary for the rapid changeover when they expel their exoskeleton and they need material for the next skeleton. Well, that might be true, I don't know. I argue with that a little bit, but at least they're gastroliths and they're normal in crayfish. If I open this up and you all smelled it, it has a kind of a resinous odor, because that's what it is, resin. But that's myrrh. You know, in the Christmas story, myrrh is mine, it's bitter perfume. In the old days, sanitation wasn't too swift. They relied on a lot of this perfume. Now we have good sanitation. We shouldn't need it that much. But that's myrrh. And frankincense is here also. Here's more of those well, that's sealed, but that's a saccular or rumen calculi that you see in the llamas, alpacas, and stuff like that. Now, forget those. This looks like that great big 500-pound block of molasses and grain and minerals. Well, if you look at this, this is a mineral block of molasses. And most of us are absolutely silly to believe the commercial people who sell it. This stuff had 40% urea instead of 4%. And it's loaded with urea, and it'll kill those cows or anything that eat it. Or some decimal place is off. Because the people who mix this stuff aren't math wizards or physics majors or something, and they might just put too much in by 1 decimal point, and it'll kill these animals, chop, chop. And what do you see with urea poisoning? Not much in the way of lesions. You might smell it in the rumen if you've got the right bacteria breaking it down, but many times you don't, and it's a difficult diagnosis. If you smell it, it just smells like beautiful molasses. This is far better than the other stuff. Purely molasses, but it's urea and molasses. Oh, that's a story of corn again. I'll not tell you that. Oh, this is one of the better stories. In upstate New York, they used to raise lots of apples and oranges and you name it. That is great stuff. And you own an orchard. In the 30s, the 20s, the 30s, and early 40s, you own an orchard. And why do you own the orchard? Because you can get hired help pretty cheap to pick all those apples. But now after the 40s and 50s, help is getting hard to get, and you have a hard time getting somebody to pick them. So you say, to heck with the apple orchards. Fine. The apple orchards need to be trimming. Well, I can't go out there. I'm now 72, I'm 75, or I'm 68. I can't do it. I can't get help. To heck with the orchard, I'll sell it and we'll make money, real estate. And that's okay. But in the back there's a little hut. And in that little hut are 7 shelves. And on those 7 shelves, there's 7 or 8 bags of lead arsenate. Now, lead arsenate is toxic as heck. It's good if you spread it over everything and you kill all the bugs, or nicotine sulfate, an old-fashioned medicine too. So you spread that all over the trees and you kill the bugs and you have nice crops. But now you're not going to raise them anymore, but you still got 7 bags, and each bag weighs 80 pounds, I think. Maybe 50 pounds. But anyhow, 7 bags times 50 is 350 pounds of lead arsenate, or, whatever, nicotine sulfate, or some other chemical. Now what happens? The next year the roof blows off part of it, and the bags get wet, but who cares? Nobody's out in the orchard. He hasn't sold it yet. And 3 years later, 1/2 falls down, and 350 pounds of lead arsenate is hanging like this. Most bags are busted. Now what happens? A good storm comes, blows the whole darn thing down. Now you've got 350 pounds of lead arsenate in a place like this. In the meantime, all the trees have been chopped down and sold for wood or whatever. And the farmer says, well, I'm going to make the place look pretty. And he kind of burns that little shack. What does that do to lead arsenate? Not much. So he plows it under. He cuts all the weeds and stuff like that. He plows the whole thing under. No problem. Of course, next spring, everything grows everywhere except here. And that's where all that lead arsenate is. Now he says, well, I might as well make some use of it. I still haven't sold it. And he buys 400 head of Angus, and he puts them on the pasture, and they go over here, and they lick that dirt. It tastes pretty good. Why? Arsenic, salts. Salts are great. One cow dies, another cow dies, another cow dies. And you don't have a clue, because it was 50 years ago when they stopped using that pasture or that area for making apples. And now it's been pasture. Well, you've got to have a good index of suspicion to figure that out, to go there and see that area, because lead arsenate or nicotine might stop the grass from growing there, but the cows love it. So that's great when you see that. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dad. Excuse me. I'm glad somebody thinks of me.
All the makeup I can do.
You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. These things here are those little bones. I think I spoke earlier to somebody that, oops, I'm sorry, TVs. Those are little bones that develop in sheep's head. A sheep head is a fish. I don't know what kind of fish it's related to in the ocean, but these are very crystalline structures, very tender, and it's an otolith from these big fish, and they're just something worthwhile. You can't see this in these little fish, but they're not quite swim-up fry, but they've got a problem with their, I forgot the name of it. What's that little sac that they pull in when they come out of the egg? I've forgotten. Well, I'm not going to, huh? Yolk sac. Yeah, they maintain their yolk sacs, and it'll kill them if they do it too long. None of you would know anything about this stuff here, but how many people are in Washington? Well, say you get 20,000, I don't know. Probably that'll kill all 20,000 people here if I dropped it in the reservoir nearby. This is a fabulous story. This is the pure McCoy called Chlorinated Naphthalene, and that's what killed cows with X disease or hyperkeratosis. Olafson and others worked on that. This is the stuff that you add to grease to increase its resistance to temperature and pressure. And they used it in the war for tanks and airplanes and machinery and stuff like that. Well, one lick of that, one little of those things would kill probably, I don't know, it's so toxic, it'll probably kill 5 cows, each flake. I mean, it's very toxic. It makes all the skin scurfiness, it causes cysts in the kidneys, it causes squamous metaplasia, the ducts, salivary glands, and things like that. You don't see it very much unless you're associated with this stuff. Now, what is that stuff? Remember this story, it's a fabulous one. Grease monkeys use these pink rags in their pants all the time. They grease their car and they wipe it off with these rags. They grease it and wipe it off. That's okay. After the end of the week, they've got these dirty pink claws that they use for grease monkeys. And some guy comes around from the laundry and he picks up the clean ones, put them there, and the cleaner ones there too. But the real black dirty ones he puts over in this pile. And what does he do with them? He can wash these, but it's difficult to wash the black pink claws that are really black. So what he does, he sells those for rags. And who buys rags? Now, you have one pink cloth in your little cheapo gas station, well, who cares? You'll just throw it away. But when you're picking up from 50, 60 gas stations, you'll pick up 100 pounds, 200 pounds. That's worth money. Who will they sell them to? They won't sell them to the paper that's making linen quality paper. Why not? You can't get the black out of it. So who will they sell them to? The tar paper manufacturers. But remember, it's resistant to heat and pressure, and you can't get it out of it, and it's in the tar paper. So this is the last case, natural case I saw, and it was a bunch of heifers in Pennsylvania. I went downtown, I went with a wife and saw them chewing these tar paper chicken shacks, and loaded with this, and it's loaded with chlorinated naphthalene. But you have to have an index of suspicion to know that. And of course you have, we talked about guttural pouch mycosis associated dorsally. But what if down the bottom, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting, I'm trying to show. Down the bottom of this guttural pouch, here in the horse, in its jaw, you've got these things. And they're kind of hard now. They were a little bit softer in the horse because of these are pellets of pure pus that developed in there from a bacterial infection in the guttural pouch. This is mycotic. This doesn't do that. This is, bastard strangles, strep equi or Corynebacterium equi or something like that. And that's the Luftsackstein, the air pouch stones. Not that many. Well, there's something here. Oh, here's some more dirt from another orchard. And that's the dirt that's so loaded with lead and arsenic, lead arsenate. These calculi are neat, and the only reason to show them to you is, how do you get calculi? How'd you get that big one and these two little tiny ones? Plus all the others in there. Because why didn't the big one just get bigger and bigger and bigger? Many calculi do. And if they became, and why didn't they round up like calculi do? You take a marbling machine and make marbles or something, you put them in, they all round up. Why didn't they round up? I don't know. But they're calculi from a dog's bladder. Oh. Look hard at that one with your camera, troops. and you can see a little pellet in there. That's an air gun pellet. Well, it's an air gun pellet, and it's in a parrot. This kid didn't like his folks' parrot, so he shot it. And they said, well, gee, we don't know why the parrot died. And they sent it to us. We x-rayed it because he had a little hole on the outside, radiographed it, and you find a pellet. So pellets will kill them. And if you look at this, you can't see it too good, but those are corn cobs, and those are grapes, the little tiny things like that. And everybody says, oh, well, he's got a lesion as big as a corn cob, or he's got, grape-sized clusters of polyps someplace. Well, what in Russia? How big do you think the average orange is that grows around Moscow in those trees? If you can see it, you're lucky. So you don't use food as a measuring device. That's what I teach the students with. Here's pancreatic stones in a 5-year-old bull, just like the other ones, a little bit better. Now, I want to know here, these are found up and down the pancreatic, just like that. Why didn't they form a big one? Why do they make all the round ones? I have no clue. Pancreatic stones. Now this one here, oh, you can't see it too good, but I'm going to tell you, it has a beautiful smell. It's a beautiful smell because I happen to like garlic. And this smells like garlic or onions. Diagnosis? Of course, this is organic phosphate poisoning. It's a classical odor. You won't have much trouble with the diagnosis when you see the eye lesion and the massive salivation. But it actually smells good. It smells like garlic. You want to smell it? Just for kicks, it's fabulous diagnosis. Don't eat the damn stuff. And here you got pellets. Some pellets are white and misshapen, the others are nice and round. Well, these pellets never been shot, and these pellets were shot. How do you find these pellets in an eagle? Because these came out of an eagle. Well, it's a mistake to give me the eagle because I'll try and steal it from the Indians. You're not supposed to, it's a national. But anyhow, they gave me the eagle, but in order to find what killed them, you have to cook them. Because how are you going to find all these pellets in an eagle carcass? You take a X-ray and you can see a lot of them, but how do you get them out? You take the eagle, you put them in a pressure cooker, a autoclave, and you cook it darn good for about 8 hours. And you get soupy eagle, that's all you get. You put them in a big tall container, and you run water in there. And then all the feathers float, and you run water at good, turbulent flow, and all that stuff, the feathers come up like this, and they all go out the top. And in the bottom, you're left with all of these things, because the bones are soup also. And that's how you get out all these little pellets. Otherwise, you'll only recover a few, relatively few. If you want to die, I have one for each of you if you want to die. Probably one each will kill you. I'm sorry, they're in the wrong place. Each one of these will probably kill one of us. And those are blister beetles. Look at the longitudinal striping. Now, some blister beetles, I don't even like playing with them actually. Some blister beetles have spots and some don't. But in a sheath of alfalfa, these go like swarms of locusts, and they will swarm from one alfalfa field to the next. And if you cut, this is a disease of progress. Progress will kill you sometimes, and this is a disease of progress. Because in the old days, here you've got a field of alfalfa loaded with these silly things, and you go and you cut them. Now all these blades of alfalfa, whatever, are laying down. They're drying out with the sun. And the beetles say, well, man, that's not the place to live. We better move. So they swarm someplace else. Excuse me. And when they swarm someplace else, no problem. But the disease of progress is that you go in with a cutter and you mow them down, and right behind the cutter you've got this big rubber thing that squishes each and every blade of alfalfa, and it dries out in 4 hours instead of 4 days, and you can put it up quick. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to leave it out there. But you squish each and every cotton-picking blister beetle. Epicotta is the name of these creatures. But the Russian fly and Spanish fly are related. And when you play with these things alive, they'll put out a little drop of yellow goo-goo at their joints. And that is what, if you eat it, you'll pass it out in the urine. It'll burn the end of your urethra, wherever it is. It will wipe out your tubules, and you will die with tubular disease in the kidney, all because of these things. When it's in the vagina, burning the cow or the penis or whatever, man, if you could just scratch it or rub it, it'd feel good. That's where the stupid people get the idea of aphrodisiacs. So don't do that. I actually would, I might not wash my hands if I showed everything else here, but I'm going to wash my hands after I do this, because they are very dangerous. We tested them, and they were the most toxic substance in our poison lab.
Don't eat that last.
Yeah. Oh, this, you can't see this too well, but the dog is dead with it, and that's the biosorb that is in the canisters on the anesthetic machines, and it broke, and somebody pushed it or something, however they did it, and pushed the biosorb down the lung and killed him. This one here, that's bedding for pigs. Well, what it is, it's the insulation from wire factory. They make wires, all kinds, and that's loaded with lead. And the pigs will die chop with lead poisoning because somebody tried, to save a buck, and they used lead contaminated, well, it's supposed to be there, insulation. Now this was bought at the Medical Arts Pharmacy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and that's tincture cantharides. And I'll guarantee you, if you drank that, you wouldn't be alive tonight. Well, unless you're on a kidney machine. And I actually bought that in a drugstore in Pittsburgh. And that's the same stuff which is in this. That's the same stuff that's in this. Cantharidin is the active ingredient in that yellow spotted stuff that you see. We're getting down there, guys. This is a barn fire, and if you smell that, it's got the same beautiful odor as that other did of organic phosphates. This is a barn fire upstairs on the second floor. He had all of the insecticides and stuff like that. It rained after the barn roof melted and all that, and it hit the bags and they dripped to the ground. The cows love organic phosphate because of it's a nice salty taste, I guess, and that'll kill them dead as a donut. Well, just when you suspect the poisoning, you really have to work pretty hard at it. And that's just stomach content that's green in a dog. But I don't know why I saved it. It's not diagnostic. I showed you one earlier that was even better. This is wheat treated with mercury. And I don't know if you guys remember in the Army, but they sent a lot of the wheat to Iran 30 years ago, 20 years ago. This wheat actually, and it's painted, it's purple, it's stained, so nobody uses it for food except the black marketeers in Iran, and they ruined lots of people's lives in Iran by this poison wheat that's supposed to kill the rats, but they fed it to the people. They ground it up, Now, this is prepubic hair in a bull, and I don't think I can get it out, but it's just prepubic hair in a bull, and each of the hairs have a layer, in beaded form of mineral on it. What's that tell you? If you have even a female, if she has a little bit of hair from the bottom of her vulva hanging down and it's got a lot of mineralization, you can bet there's something wrong with the diet. and that'll kill every bull and every ram or goat, stud goat, with calculi. So you have a good index of suspicion before they die with calculi, that when you have those little hairs in there that have mineral on them. You're not supposed to have that much mineral in your urine. And if it dries, it'll make calculi, just like these calculi form. Oh, here's another air pellet. They're common things to shoot animals with in the house when the kids are bored with nothing to do. We're almost there. Now this here is cute only because it's an interesting stuff. And that's about, the fish is about this big, and probably he's got about that much of this in it. That replaced the kidney. And this is nephrocalcinosis of Chinook salmon in this case. But the kidney is wiped out. Oh, I'm sorry, you had to move your cameras. Good, I'm almost done. All of this material is mineralization, and it's replaced the kidney. Why did the animal die with kidney disease? Anybody? You have to think of that, because remember, fish get rid of most of their urinary waste through the skin, not through the kidney. Or they can do it through the skin, you don't have to worry about it. So that's a neat trick for them. More blister beetles. You all know about phagoprism, if you haven't seen it. Well, forget it. You're not going to see it today. But that's phagoprism associated with buckwheat. That's the buckwheat itself, and it gets the mold on it, and you get phagoprism. This is great. What are those things? If you look at them real close, you can see that they have a hollow center. And those hollow centers, that whole thing, is evidence of fluke infestation or infection in the liver, and these are mineralized bile ducts that had the flukes, debris, and the dead material inside, and it caused that mineralization of these of the walls. Just kind of cute. But a lot of people have never seen them, and that's when you cut through the liver and you hit this hard mineralized stuff. More big blister beetles. Oh, these little darn fish, they all have two heads. You know, 4 sets of eyes. Common anomalies in little fish. Okay, last but not least. This, it is a filter, but milk strainers. Many times I used to milk, and when you had milk strainers, you'd take them out and you'd toss them on the floor. The cats loved them, and the cats would die with foreign body, with the whole thing in his gut, or linear foreign body, and that'll kill you. And I think I showed this I showed that as a Kodachrome. You don't see any oil here, but that is oil inhalation pneumonia in a horse's lung, but you don't see the oil. You would if it was brown paper. And I guess that's lost. That's all I have for today. Whew. Hope you enjoyed the black box.